Morning.
Morning. How's everybody?
Well,
I'm always good.
always good.
I don't have any other choice.
All right, with us today we have Chief Deputy Allen from the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office. Deputy Chief Deputy, you can start at 9:05.
Well, actually the boss is on his way, but I know y'all are running a little bit ahead of schedule. The only major points I need to cover is I know that we went through the COVID money on the $800,000. Ford is running the cars. I haven't got my order placed in yet, so we're going to be working on the cars on the COVID money. The auction money will be coming back in front of the budget committee, so we should be able to get some cars. But the bad news that I'm bringing you is after I got all my numbers in, and these cars are not spec'd out with anything fancy, I promise you. They're running $57,000 for a car and deck with $57,000. I used to be able to do it for $38,000, $39,000, and now, so we're at 17 cars just with $800,000. The only changes really in our budget this year, just like you was talking about, the uncontrollable, is a little bit of, in the salaries and insurance and retirement, is we put in there $240,000 for cars. If y'all want to go into our rotation, and we asked for the COLA, 8.7% this year is the COLA for Social Security. That's what was in place. If you go back 14 years, 12 years, where they put in the salary scales with the county. That's probably before, I guess Commissioner Alice was here during that time. That's what we were supposed to stay up. We're still 4% behind, considering even with the 9% last year, we're still 4% behind on about 12 years. And this year they put it at 8.7, so it's not a pay raise, it's a cost of living adjustment. It is what it is by the federal guidelines. But if you got any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer them, and we can go through it line by line, page by page, whatever you want to do.
Just a point of clarification, that 8.7 is a request, it's not in the budget anywhere.
Do you have that, like monetized or put into, how much that would cost?
Starting last year, we tried to do across the board COLAs outside of the highway, obviously, as we discussed that Wednesday. But we tried to do across the board, and no, I do not have anything countywide established on a COLA cost at this time. I'd be happy to work one up, and you guys give me a little direction on what you'd like me to work up and what you'd like to look at, a couple options possibly. But as I discussed with you all, I also discussed with Tony, we have some inequities in some of our scales. And if we were to fix those scales, then it would be appropriate to look at a softer COLA. If we do not fix those scale issues, then a larger COLA would be more appropriate. And to try to be fair, what I discussed with Chief Deputy Allen was if we were to throw money at one scale, we would throw money at the other scale as well, just to be across the board doing the same thing for all employees. If we could figure out a way to get a highway scale in place in time, we'd like to do the same all the way across the board, so we have none of those issues.
Chief Deputy Allen, you shared some fantastic data with me, which is a really great report about pay and pay equity for municipalities in the state of Tennessee.
Yes, sir.
Will you clarify one thing for me, though? What is the starting year zero pay for a jailer or a police officer?
Whenever that came in, whenever this was submitted, that was before everything. Now it's $16.38.
Okay. Do you know what the average is for the state of Tennessee?
I can look at it here.
I think let's see. Hold on. The average for the state of Tennessee is $16.24 an hour.
That's correct, but you got to remember that the size of our county is also in the top percentage also.
Sure.
No. Commissioner Roach.
Yes, sir.
What are you referring to, the state?
So, Chief Deputy Allen shared a document with me. It's just a research study on how sheriff's offices are paying their employees.
Yeah.
And so it's got everybody ranked from top to bottom.
I understand.
And so we are assuming that none of the other numbers changed and ours did, which is not going to be true, but we're right at it. the average, we're dead in the middle of, the state for pay. We outpace, it looks like we're outpacing a lot of counties in the middle of West Tennessee. Unicoi County, we're in advance of them, they're in East Tennessee County. So, you know, just something to think about. And we, you know, the 89th highest paid, the highest paid county in the state of Tennessee at the time of this report was $25.36 an hour. An 8.7% increase would take 1638 to what number? Do you know what that would be?
I can't figure it out. Give me just a minute.
Super what?
1781.
1781, which would put us 64th. We'd be in the top 2/3 at that point of pay in the state for counties, which you know, I'll be honest with you, I wish we could be right about number 89. You know, yeah.
But in reality, it's, we are, top 2/3 largest county in the state. I mean, we're running, you know, anywhere from 270, 280 inmates. Patrol, we're running, I got my numbers in, we're running about 3,000 calls. There's also, we booked in a little over 2,200 people into the jail this year. Call volume is, I think we're at 22,000 for this year. So Hawkins County is a big county.
A couple of questions. When is that data, when was that collected, or when's that report based on?
April 2023 is when it was issued, but it's probably off of data that had been collected before a lot of the increases went into place. Because it has us listed at $15.38 an hour, so it had to be collected before our rise went into effect.
It's, actually they collected that in January, I believe.
And I'm happy to share this report. It really is it's very in line.
I can make a copy for anybody that wants one. I've got.
I would like to have it.
Yeah,
Email it or
I can email it to you.
midday.
Yeah.
Just email it'll be
Who
fine.
just shared it?
Yep.
Email.
There you go. Even better.
So the next question I wanted to ask is, when we issued the 9% pay increase for those agencies that received the pay increase, and then we did a pay equity plan that you presented to us, where like Detective B went to Detective A, the jailers went onto the police officer pay scale.
Correct.
So in that formula for pay for the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office, we did some really great things for you guys last year. So and the goal that we were trying to achieve for that was, we're trying to help the hiring process, in addition to taking care of the men and women who put their lives on the line for us every day. So we want to, I guess the number one thing I need to say is we want to take care of them, because they're with us, they're ours, and they're our responsibility. So my question is, a year later, how's it changed the ability to hire?
Well, it's easier to hire. It's a little bit easier to hire in the Stockton jail. We are down positions right now. We are down 7 positions. The sheriff, he hires pretty much every week. It has, where we was not getting any applications, we actually did get applications now. So, but whenever we lose one on the side of the patrol side of it, there's been a study that came out, and I probably looked that back up, is whenever you lose one officer, you basically lose $100,000 after all the pay. What are you, sir, you're 14 positions down across the board, is it?
Right, and he's talking about getting applications, we get them for corrections, we don't get them for patrol or SRO. So that's why I'm having to send people out of jail to the police academy. As a matter of fact, I lost SRO this week going to a factory job.
So do you feel like, you know, historically, you when you wanted to join the sheriff's office, you got hired in a jail, you got hired in, you know, like those non-post certified positions, and then it was kind of an honor for the sheriff's office to say, guess what, you've earned your way to go to police academy. Is that still the situation?
No, I remember the day I got my phone call sitting down there down there at the desk. Actually, sheriff is one that said, "You're gonna go to the academy," and I was ecstatic. Now we're begging people.
There's really no incentive now, it pays the same.
Well, no, it's not too much to do with that. It's, the sheriff, had me to have the academy tryout where 3 years ago I had 15 people want to try out and I had one to try out. So it's, nobody wants to work in law enforcement anymore. And we're not the only county. I mean, cities is having the same problem.
Saw a report on Carter County this morning,
Yeah.
having a very similar.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just here. It just, people don't want to work in law enforcement. That's,
We'll work it out.
I agree, sir.
Just a little back education so you'll see what happened. In 1977, when I started with the city of Rogersville, myself and the deputies made exactly the same thing. Where the big break is now, where they start out at 70,000, is every year, if we got 3% of the city, the county did. Then the city started giving 10%, the county stayed at 3%. And it just kept progressing like that. That's how we got so far behind the cities. When I left the city of Rogersville as their detective in 1990 and come to be chief deputy here, I take that pay. Of course, it went back to money for me, but it's just saying the difference, and we've never been able to catch up. So that's why a majority of the people that's worked and retired from the city of Rogersville has been former deputies that the county taxpayers has trained. And many of them in Churchill and Mount Carmel, same way.
Going back to the budget side of it, sheriff had me prepare your budget. There's really not a lot of changes in it except for stuff that's under control. The vehicles is the one, I guess, the main question that we have. But I'm more willing to answer anything you have, or I'm here at your, to answer for anything you need.
I have a question concerning the pay we were just discussing. So, do you think, as we discussed the idea of COLAs, cost of living adjustments, and all of those type things, what would be your thoughts on, rather than doing a cost of living adjustment that would adjust the hourly wage, doing some type of retention incentive bonus?
Well, actually, there's,
Go ahead.
there's some legislative out there right now that's already getting ready to go into the House that the state is going to start, they're looking at it, that it's not going to be a burden onto the counties.
In terms of what?
Retention pay.
Oh.
I can't remember exactly the numbers. I've actually got it. I could probably look it up. But the state has actually got funding in place for retention pay and bonuses for, that's what was holding it up. They was wanting to pay new people coming in. And then, of course, the people who was already there started questioning it. So they have went back and now they're looking at bonus payment for law enforcement officers. So what you're asking is, it's already in place. Nothing going to be a burden onto the taxpayers here inside the county or you. I would foresee that would probably come out in July or August, sir.
Did they not also want money for SRO officers?
That is in place also. This might be a good place to speak about that. It has not been finalized on it. The sheriff received an email on it Tuesday where the SRO funding, if everything's going the way it's supposed to be, each county is going to be getting $75,000 per school inside of their district. So basically what that means is I think we pay for six. We pay for six. You'll be getting to receive funding for that, where you will not be paying 6 salaries. The school pays so many. You will not be, the school will not have to be paying that salary, and we have some on grants, and all the grants are going away. That will not be renewed, and that funding will be, I think they've already got $140 million in there, and I think somebody said that it's going to go to 280. But that will not be funding that would have to come from the county. And that's, I'm pretty sure I mean,
It's recurring expenditure
Yeah.
too.
now, we change the way the budget flows just a little bit. Me and Melissa were discussing that the other day. Right now, you get a reimbursement from the Board of Education for your SROs. The way that we're understanding that legislation is going to flow directly into the sheriff's budget and bypass the Board of Education. So all of that revenue will come directly to us to support those SROs.
And that's I would say 98% that's gonna happen. It just, they have got all the paperwork ready for it.
The retention program, do you foresee that flowing like the salary supplement for the post-certified officers? Just once a year payment?
Would y'all get that up on my phone?
You please do.
I'm sorry,
You're okay.
I promise I'm not trying to be rude.
No, it's okay.
On the SRO part, it's just gonna take a MOU between myself and the Board of Education. Agreement, that's all it's gonna take for them.
And that's one per school, right?
Right.
Where now currently we have one or two that split duty, correct?
I may have already, deleted it off my phone. I can't remember exactly the numbers on it. I wanna say $8,000.
It's more per year.
Yeah.
Starts at like 3,000 and goes up.
Is that paid in a one-time
Yes.
payment to them as for staying with the department that they're
I
in?
think that's what they're working on is that if you receive the payment, you're under somewhat of a contract that you gotta stay so many years and this, that, and the other. You can't just get your 8,000 and leave, or 5,000, 3,000, whatever it is. But the state of Tennessee is working on that. So I don't have good answers. I know it's just in the first phase of, well, I guess it's in the second phase because it's going to go for approval. But that's not finalized yet. And I would hate to say that that's good to go. The SRO thing is, that's going to happen.
I think that's great because I've hired a lot of people over the years and had to staff a lot for restaurants, not law enforcement, of course. So yours is much more difficult, I'm sure. But if you ever had a staffing problem, it wasn't just hiring, it was retention, right? If you hire people, you can hire as many as you want, but if they're leaving, and anything we can do to incentivize them to stay is a good thing. And tying pay to them staying, I think, is important as well, right? If I stayed till March and I was going to get a bonus, and I got a job offer to make $1 more an hour or 50 cents more an hour at another department or whatever in November, I would think twice before leaving because, oh man, I'm going to lose these few $1,000s. So, and if we could get every officer that's going to leave us to stay, that's going to help tremendously.
Well, I think that, just in a nutshell, that your question is, I think the state of Tennessee is already looking at that. And I don't think that's something that we should address here because if the state is going to give us money to do it, I think that's the best way to go.
Yeah.
And I know Eric would probably agree with that.
I certainly would, and the way the salary scale is structured, I mean, we already do that in essence. We have steps on your years of service, so the longer you stay with us, the more you get paid.
And I agree with that. However, there is some value to a lump sum of money that's hanging out in front of you, right? Rather than if you offer me $1,000 over the course of 52 weeks, right? Or if you offer me $1,000 in a lump sum, oftentimes, I mean, for me, that would be more attractive, right? So I agree with the steps. That's the whole point of it. But anyway, sorry.
So will that come directly to the police department too, the retention money?
That has not been set yet.
States, they're appropriating $140 million for that school resource officer program.
Probably come directly to the trustee, most likely.
That's what I was thinking. I think we would have to submit, sort of like we do our post supplement pay. I'm assuming we will probably have to submit our post officers, and that's how the money would come in if that does take place. That'll be, which is pretty simple on our part. All it is, here's a report, send it to doing all work with that.
I found that. We recruit somebody from out of state. They get 6 months, they get $1,000. Out of state recruit stays up to 3 years, they get $3,000. Total $10,000 per year every year to stay. In state, recruit somebody get $3,000, second year $2,500, third year $2,500 total. After 3 years, they've got $8,000. And it says agencies held up to $15,000 to offset costs. Scholarships for the academy.
The problem is you're going to compete with every other county, at least recruiting.
Well, across the whole state of Tennessee's getting it, and I mean, I know that some of you are familiar with the state, what they've done with the Tennessee, the trooper side of it. They're at 62, getting ready to go to 66,000. Homeland Security is putting 95 more. Let me rephrase that. Each county is going to have a Homeland Security officer, and their starting pay is going to be $62,000. And TBI is getting ready to go to $62,000. So with all that said, we will be losing people.
I've lost 5 THB.
And their pay just went up again. I think the sheriff was telling me the other day that they're going to go to 66. So,
Sheriff Lawson, you've been in law enforcement a long time, 1977.
Yes, sir.
Has it ever been a situation where we've not lost people to PHP? Like I mean, that was kind of moving up, even back in.
The PHP was occasionally, you just lost them occasionally, because they was, one time they were sending them wherever across the state, and now they kind of keep them very helpful.
Well, I will say this, you know, when we're looking at cost of living across the county. Of course, if we discuss the cost of living, it's my opinion that it needs to apply to county employees.
absolutely. I agree.
And, you know, when I look at folks that are on Social Security, and I made the comment, I think last year, that looking at Social Security increases really is where you need to try to be, because there's so much research that goes into those increases due to inflation and everything else. And people that make a lot more money than I do and are a lot smarter that project out based on the economic situation, you know, what that raise needs to be. You know, someone on Social Security right now is at $1,692 a month, and they're getting an 8.7% increase. I think it's going to put us, I can't remember what it was, maybe 1,800, 1,700, something like that. Josh probably can figure it out and see.
Hey, with calculator.
Yeah, 1775. So over the span of a year, you're looking at folks that draw Social Security making, I think it's over $1,000 in a raise, 1,700, I think. So what I did is I took that and I broke it down into, if someone was on Social Security and they worked an hourly wage, how much would they make? And what I found out is it's not a lot, you know, for them, because their rate of pay is so low. I mean, I think if you're on Social, if you make the same amount of money that you do if you make Social Security and you work, it's like $10.54 an hour. Tough for us, and I do think we need to continue to look at creative solutions for pay, because when we do a cost of living increase for county employees, your department is going to cost the most.
Yes.
100%. So, yeah. So, what we have to look at is how can we adjust cost of living, but how can we still live within our means? Because, you know, even though we are trying to project the cost of living off of Social Security increases, we also have to remember that there's people that draw Social Security and that's all they got, and they make $1,692 a month right now. And I really want to be careful about continuing to go back and ask for increases from the taxpayers in large amounts. And I think we've got ideas and plans moving forward on how we can address that, but just know from our point of view, you know, we want to take care of our employees, but we also want to make sure that we're not putting an undue burden on our citizens too. So that's the balance that we've got. So I'm not saying we're not making any decisions in this hearing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I understand that.
But I just want to say, moving forward, it's a very precarious situation that we're in, to make sure that we're taking care of our people, but we're also taking care of our people.
But I understand that, and just, I cannot disagree with anything you said, sir. But also you got to remember that, the sheriff's employees also, have to buy groceries just like everybody else. have to put fuel in their car just like everybody else, should have to pay rent like everybody else. The federal guidelines are saying that it needs to go to 8.7%, so I think that was very fair for the sheriff to ask just to stay with the cost of living adjustment. He's not asking for pay raises, he's asking for the same thing as the cost of living adjustment. And I agree with every employee of Hawkins County should fall underneath that, and that's how that was supposed to be set up 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah, I have employees that say they have to make a decision, are they gonna buy groceries this week? Or they're gonna pay a bill, or they're gonna pay the rent?
And yeah, and I think, you know, I wanna go on record, when we heard from your employees last year, because some of your officers came up and talked to us, and I got calls from some of your patrol officers, some of your, you know, they're serving 1 and 2 years in the sheriff's office, you know, they made a decision, they want to go to law enforcement, it's gonna be their career. And knowing that they had to choose between groceries and medicine is a tough situation, or it's young folks that are having to live at home because they can't afford to pay rent, that's tough. And that's why we did what we did for the sheriff's office and for county employees last year, with the exception of a couple of departments that was out of our control. So, so I want you to say, I don't think there's anybody here that thinks that the sheriff's office knows what they should. I'm telling you, I would love to steal people from Rogersville City Police Department, and I love it. Rogersville is my constituency, but I'd love for our sheriff's office to be such that we were taking people from them. So I want to go on record, and I'm going to shut up because I'll talk too much because I care about y'all, but I also want y'all to know the position that I'm in.
Well, but I believe in the whole county commission cares for the sheriff. Everything that the sheriff has always brought to y'all always had open ears, and I do appreciate that. And Commissioner Alice hit it down on. I really don't think nobody wants to work, so it's everywhere you go in this town, help on it.
Of course, it's a catch-22 too. If we give you a raise, and then we have to raise your taxes, then we're giving you something and taking it away from you. So,
But we got pretty low taxes, if everybody across America moving here for some reason. They call it like a hill, that's for sure.
that's true.
Commissioner Roach, and Commissioner Turner can probably relate to this if he's old enough to draw Social Security. No, I don't think there's no two recipients, Commissioner Watt, that draws the same.
I'm working
I am too.
like a dog.
Yeah, well, Social Security's there for that purpose, but, I know some people that draws $600-700 Social Security.
And it depends, there's a scale you can look at. I'm just going on the individual single.
Yeah, it's based on your last 2 or 3 years of your employment. But now there's a lot less than $1,000, more under than there is over.
Yeah, that was just the average number that I pulled, but
That was the high end, what you put.
that's what the Social Security Administration issued as a single payer, as what they pay, and one individual that's retired with no dependents, no spouse, so yeah, it does fluctuate.
Didn't run that number by the office.
I draw Social Security, so I know.
So let's, so that everything for the sheriff's department you've discussed, and actually you're showing a decrease in your projected budget of $14,378, but that's without the request for motor vehicles.
That's correct.
Without the request for the 8.7% cut.
That's correct.
All right, so do you want to move on to your, see, we've got your drug fund, no, pardon.
Yes, general sitting right there.
So courtroom security, sheriff's department, you just want to move. That's one. That's the one we just went over. You've got courtroom security, sex offender registry, jail, and drug. So which do we want to go to now?
I'd probably help you out pretty easy. The drug enforcement, that's got to do with the sheriff having an officer over the drug task force, which that's not the big drug fund. That's just the salaries are going over. The sex offender, what are you now, 92, sheriff? 92 offenders that we have to keep track of monthly. That's a pretty easy budget. basically the only reason why that's in there is they have to pay and we have to have line items. Every now and then we'll buy a computer out of that. The jail, your $33,000, utilities has, of course, increased a little bit on the salary side. And of course, medical insurance was dropped, pretty much uncontrolled. Our medical and dental services has went up. They started out giving the sheriff a 5% increase. He had went back and renegotiated that down to 2%, and we're at $280,000 now for medical, and you gotta have medical in jail. But he did renegotiate that before you, and quite a bit of savings on that. So I feel that the sheriff is not submitting anything. A lot of it's, the biggest ones, the utilities.
And just a review for the commissioner, so, the sheriff's department is 26. There is a drug enforcement line item, but it also, your drug fund has its own tab.
That's correct, sir.
Then you have sex offender registry, which is a zero increase, zero decrease. Jail, as the chief deputy says, is a $33,383 increase. And that has you covered.
The sheriff prepared you a budget today that's not asking for anything that's, anything really new except for the COLA, utility. As you can tell, even with y'all's pay raise last year that y'all gave, you can tell that it's not really changing much this year because everybody's still in the ones. So retention, just like you said, it's really not going up. The drug fund, pretty much that sports narcotics unit. There is a change in that, but we was running very low on money last year, and I had to cut, the sheriff had to cut his line downs to very minimums to be able to get within budget. And now we just took the numbers like it was 2 years ago, which it usually runs about $100,000 a year to run the narcotics time and drug payments, which baby dough money, car auction. I think the sheriff's is back up. Down $800,000 maybe.
Fund balance is much
Yeah.
healthier than it was.
It's
652 estimated ending this year.
That's this year's budget out of it, so I think if we don't spend it, we'll probably be right at $800,000 in the drug fund, and that's self-sustained, but we can't squeeze a lot of stuff anymore, but that's, we went from 100,000 to 800,000 because of baby dough, a couple auctions, Cedars, sales, so he's he worked very hard this year to get that back up, and I'm glad for it.
So as you, replace your cars, you've got 17 coming,
Maybe.
will you, I guess you'll be selling off some old patrol cars too? So, but all those are just gonna be old, ragged out patrol cars, so we don't really expect any.
I would not count on any of that money to make a difference. So I think the last cars we sold up there, the patrol cars went for about $800 maybe. And a lot of the people who build street cars like their rings in them, and that's the reason why they sell very well. So I think we should have, if the sheriff was able to order 17 cars, we would probably have 9 cars to sell out of all that, but you still have backups.
Would you do that in this fiscal year, you think, or would you just hold on to them until you get more built up?
I would hold on to them until we got built up.
So maybe a couple years.
That would be a 2-year sell wait.
Does anyone else have any other questions for the chief deputy or the sheriff?
Yes, on the housing for inmates, federal and state, I noticed Carter County's been negotiating, they've got a substantial increase in their,
We do not house federal inmates.
what do we get on state?
We, on state, the sheriff does not control that. The state will call him and say, I want such and such inmate, and this is the reason why we went from 124 inmates of state inmates down to 40 state inmates, but that's something that he cannot control. The state
I'm talking about the funding. How much do we get?
$39 a day.
I'm sorry, I didn't say your name, but we're glad you're here too.
He broke down, so he's like, so.
Got one of my patrol cars.
And regulation, the House, state, and our federal inmates is just more than a week.
So that's why Carter County did that, they,
You know, the prior administration, sheriff, got set up with the feds, but they had a lot of stipulation to house their inmates. It's really more troublous work and it really ain't cost effective to the county.
Actually, whenever the sheriff done the study on it 8, 9 years ago, for him to house federal inmates, you have to double your staff.
and that's, I think that's what they did.
On the patrol car money that you're asking for, the additional, so currently, in the current budget, Eric, we budgeted
140,
140.
and he wants an additional 140 to bring it to 280.
280, okay. So $280,000 a year, so that will buy you
Four, probably.
4 or 5, right, somewhere around in there. So you need, what you're saying is you need this additional money to make the rotation work.
Well,
Is that what you're
that's 10 years ago.
10 years.
10 years ago, they asked the sheriff to do that, and we tried it, and we've tried it every year since then. And I think 3 years ago, we finally started getting the money into it. And, of course, COVID hit, and they stopped making cars. But now they're back up and running. I mean, I thought 4 Durangos down here, they canceled the order on. I need to speak with Mr. Buchanan on, because they still hadn't ran them, and I ordered them 2 years ago. And they still haven't ran. And that money's encumbered. So I'd like to take that money and put it towards the forest, which I don't know if that's legal or not. So.
It's not that simple, but it can be done. You all have to bless that operation, because what you can't do on encumbrance is switch vendor. So we would have to liquidate that encumbrance, drop it back into fund balance, and then you would have to authorize a budget and pull it back out of fund balance to reappropriate in the new fiscal year so you could change his vendor.
100%.
Yeah, I like that.
If we can do that, I'd like to do it so you get your car.
It's, sheriff had me order them 2 years ago, and I call about every month, and like, well, haven't ran yet. Like, this is 2 years.
So if they run now, are they gonna be electric or hybrid?
So they, probably gonna be a spaceship by the time they order, and they run them. I actually got permission from the sheriff there last week to cancel the order, and I've been trying to cancel that order because 2 years. I ordered a truck for, administration, and it took 2.5 years to get that truck in. But Ford, Dennis from Murfreesboro Ford says that there are running Fords now, so they should get caught up, and the fleet should be able to be ordered. I'm hoping by June or July, it is what I'm told.
So if we unencumber that money, reallocate that back over to Ford, so that's 21 cars you're gonna be able to get now?
21, 22, if everything works out the way I'm wanting it to work out, talking about auction money, getting this, that moved, and there's a lot of things in place that me and Mr. Buchanan has talked about, that this is probably not the time to start doing budget amendments and asking for money, because I'm pretty sure he's got his hands full, and I'm not gonna mess with him right now, because he'll probably throw me out of his office if I start asking him to do all kinds of crazy stuff right now. But yes, sir, long story short, is my plan is the order of the sheriff 22 cars after all the money's moved around. And then Mr. Palmer has talked about this, and I think I've got a plan in place, as long as they will run the cars. And the sheriff out
You've told us this before, Tony, so I apologize.
there. So,
The total number of vehicles that you have, not including backups, but the
Right.
ones that you use, what is, do you know that number?
yeah, there's actually about 60 cars that's used
Okay.
on a normal basis. I mean, you know, you're talking about patrol, detectives, administration, court, transport, mowing crew, jail. I mean,
Okay.
roughly 58, 60 cars that's used. I don't want to say daily, because the way the shifts work, but not daily, but, you know, they work 14 days a month, so they're not used every day. So I don't want to say daily,
Okay.
but more.
So if we're buying 4 or 5 a year, right, we would replace the entire fleet, every vehicle,
Well,
every 10 years or so.
each shift has got 6 people on it. And you've got a supervisor will drive 3,000 to 4,000 miles a month. Somebody who lives in a zone, works that zone, don't have to rotate out of it much, may drive 2,000 miles a month. So we want to have some cars that don't need to be replaced as quick as some other cars. It's, I've got some officers that will drive high mileage, I've got some officers that drive low mileage. It's got to do with what area you're working, where you work. If you're a supervisor can go from Kingsport to Dean Station 3 times a day. It's, and I mean, it all depends on the car. So I would love to replace 6 cars a year. I know after getting the numbers in, that's not doable. Financially, I don't think that's doable by the county. So if we're at 4 cars a year, I think that's financially doable.
When I got Tony's text to come down here to start early, I was talking to the officer, he's got almost 240,000 on the he's driving.
Well, I'm in favor of getting new cars. I just want to make sure that we solve the problem long term, right? So we're not having to come back and talk about $1 million purchase all once again. I would rather give you the money each year so that you can take care of it.
Yeah, because what we're gonna run into, you know, we bought money with tobacco, we bought cars with tobacco money, so we were okay there. And now we're buying cars with ARPA money.
Yeah.
And then, you know, 10 years from now,
If
we
go-
may not be
That's
a
correct.
lot of money that we can do, so somewhere we gotta get on the rotation thing to where we can keep up so that we don't have that big purchase every 10 years.
Did you say $57,000?
$57,000 is what it's costing.
$342,000 a year to rotate 6.
So,
And you're saying you can get about $900 a car from auction, so that'll offset the cost by $5,400.
there you go. Thank you for being the numbers guy.
Yeah.
4 cars, 5 cars, I can't promise you in 10 years, we may have to buy 10 cars at one time, but I think this is a solution to minimize a big purchase on down the road.
For the committee, this would be the same discussion as what we've had about the capital projects fund, right? About, I mean, yes, it may cost us $100,000 a year to do this, but the truth is, if we don't put it in the budget, you're going to spend it anyway, and you're going to pay more for it in the long run. So I would ask the committee to consider any ongoing expenses, making sure that those are budgeted properly, to not only take care of the officers in the department, but I think it's the most fiscally responsible decision. So,
I think this year, the sheriff will probably spend around $130,000 on maintenance, on the sheriff's side, so. And the sheriff, had me buy a couple of, used cars for the detectives, and that was pretty much cost saving, and they turned out to be pretty good cars for them, because they're not on patrol. Patrol is his #1 goal, to make sure that that's a very good, dependable working car, because if whenever you call, you want them there.
So if we were to get on that rotation, 6 cars a year after you bought 22, how long would it take you to get the cars that are going to be, when your fleet's no more than 4 or 5 years old at a time?
Right.
You know, you don't have to answer that, but that is a thought looking long term, because if you've got cars that are 4 or 5 years old and your entire fleet, the oldest ones are 4 or 5 years old, the maintenance cost is going to decrease substantially. That's going to happen when most likely we're not here. You know, it's going to take a few years for that to take place.
But I think it's, I think that, it has not fell on deaf ears, and we're all thinking of a solution here, and of course, you know, they rotate down. SROs will get, patrol cars, and they may drive 1,000 miles a month, but they're not into the pursuit, which SROs, work the road during the summer. But, it's a good plan, I do believe, and, we just gotta find a happy medium of what number we wanna use and how many cars we wanna get to go on this rotation. So, y'all know me, I'm pretty easy to work with, and I'm not like Eric. So,
I would agree with everything Commissioner Gillum said. I just want to expand upon it and say one additional thing. Not only do you need to allocate the appropriate amount of on top of it, you also need to fund it. We have to back it up.
And leave it in the budget.
That's the catch. That's the catch. Absolutely. That's part of the purpose.
well, but truthfully, the 140 that he's requested, to get to the 360 or 340, whatever Jason said there, I mean, you're talking another $50,000-$80,000, which is a lot, but if it takes care of the problem, I mean, that's not a huge number compared to the numbers that we are dealing with.
To never have to discuss an $800,000 purchase again, it's not a huge difference.
If the sheriff could replace 6 cars a year, that will solve your problem. Because 4 shifts has 6 officers, patrol cars last about 4 to 5 years. That would rotate out of patrol every 4 years. You're replacing that, that will fix your problem. But now I can't tell you in 10 years after, what happens, that you may have to buy 10 cars at some, because of course we wreck cars and things happen and you don't replace, but I do believe 6 is the number we're at. But the funding side of it, in reality, we're for a year as of right now.
Any other questions for the Chief Deputy Sheriff, Lieutenant Gallion?
The positions you're down, what positions are those? Are there
All the way across the
patrol?
board.
All the way
Patrol, SROs, jail, detective, I think we're full in court right now. We are. No, we like one, court, all the way across the board. If you know anybody that is a certified police officer, send them our way. We would love to have it.
So when's the next academy class graduate? Did y'all get any of that last?
Yeah, we've got one in right now.
I mean, did y'all get any of that graduation? I just saw in the paper that they had some graduated. Did y'all were able just to get any of those?
Well, we graduated we graduated 4 out of that academy. And he's the one that takes the blunt of this, because we take all his employees, we put them over on. So I don't know if I want him sitting behind me talking about this. He may flog me.
We actually got hired heavy in the jail because we know we'll be pulled from.
And
Sad part is though, we manage every time when the city has somebody retire or go somewhere else, we know who's gonna fire. You can replace sometimes the person, but you can't hardly replace that experience. And you get better people leaving for you.
I think the next academy class that we're going to be able to use is August, right, sir? July or August. July or August, this time we were, you won't be able to send somebody. Yeah, I think we held five seats this week for that class. And I know for sure that he's got 3 people that he's going to send, and hopefully if Lieutenant Guy can get up and take a couple more from him. But that's still not going to keep us full. That's still not going to fill us up.
Anything else? Well, gentlemen, thank you for all you do.
Right,
Thank
good
you.
job.
Thank you, guys.